Hey, this is Witty, and this is a little video for Donkey Pepsi, who wanted to know how to edit Warcraft 3 units and heroes after seeing my Witty Hoedown map. Well, I'm going to do a little quick guide for you to give you a basic idea on how to approach this. And the first part will be to have a little look at a couple of websites. If you want to maybe look up, for example, on Google, Warcraft 3 model attachment points. That will be a good place to go. So you click on either one of these and it will basically take you over to these pages where you can see the attachment point names and the attachment point modifiers. And the other part is this is what it looks like. So overhead, head obviously, right hand, left hand, chest, origin, right foot, left foot. And this is Witty Hoedown. You can find on Epic War if you go to that address. And the reason why I say this is not locked, this map. So if you just go and open it up in the world edit, you can basically copy and paste exactly what I've done, or just see exactly how I've done. But I'm going to quickly show you anyway. So if we take a look at the world editor, this is the map. These are the units, and as you can see, a lot of them don't look that odd, apart from a couple. Now, the couple that do stand out, such as Illidan here and the Mountain Giant, who is a giant boat, the reason why they stand out, for example, if we look and find them, Night Elf Heroes, these are all the original units that have been actually edited. I haven't. You can, if you want to be safe and you're making your own map, for example, and you don't want to touch the originals, but you like an idea of the Demon Hunter, but you want to copy it, I assume you know, but you can always copy and paste. So Control C plus Control V, that will give you a new custom unit version identical to the original of which you copied and pasted. And that way you can go nuts and edit that little guy down here. As you can see, he's now a new custom Night Elf hero unit, and you can go nuts changing him all that you like and do whatever you like to him in these options without having to touch the original. But for this purpose, my purpose with the Witty Hoedown was simply just to not worry about that and just change the originals, since it is intended to be treated as a melee map. Now, going back to my point, art model file, Illidan, evil, Illidan, morphed. We take a look at that, you can see in the little window here that that is the art model file right there. So I've physically changed his art model file, which is why it shows up in the world edit. But for example, the Priestess of the Moon looks like the Priestess of the Moon here because, well, I haven't changed her model file. Her model file is identical, but how I did change her was to add abilities to her. Now I'll tell you how to do this, although it also tells you on the website. Is I added N Priestess of the Moon, N Priestess of the Moon 2, 3, 4. B Tinker shouldn't even be there, to be honest. That's sometimes a little glitch that happens, but whatever. And it's basically these 4 points that cause the Priestess of the Moon to look as bizarre as she will do. And you'll see this towards the end of the video. All of this will make sense. So if we go to, for example, abilities, and we look for N standing for Night Elf, Priestess of the Moon, you can see there's Priestess of the Moon, well, the original 2, 3, and 4. So N Priestess of the Moon. I've attached the target Snowy Owl, which is basically a unit. So you have a choice of using units, unit missiles, such as Ancient Death Tower, Blood Mage Kale's attack, Demolisher attack. Bear in mind that not all of these are going to work. Specifically, these ones will not really work. But if you go for the like abilities and unit missiles and units, those will generally work if you're using them as an attack or a model for your character, or an attachment model, so to speak. So I use the Snowy Owl. I attach this to her weapon because if you remember, these are the weapons, so you can attach to overhead, head, chest, origin, hand, foot, weapon. So that's what I've done with the Snowy Owl. That's attached to the weapon. And I'll tell you how to do this basically. If you want to attach something, the easy way, or at least the way I did it, to a hero, change the model file, then what you want to do, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just quickly load up the map and then I'll go over a couple of points because that will very quickly show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay, so you can see suddenly all of these units look very different to how they look in the world edit, apart from Illidan. But even then, Illidan still looks slightly different now because there's an art attachment which has been placed upon his weapon, and that's the glaive thrower attack animation, which you can see. So you go to abilities, missiles, and then choose glaive thrower, for example, and it will give you this, which you can attach to his weapon, to his feet, to his head, to his origin, chest, whatever it is you wish, but I think it looks pretty damn cool on the weapons. Now, this character over here, you might not recognize them now, but this is actually the Priestess of the Moon.
Leading the way.
She looks pretty darn stupid, wouldn't you admit? Which is essentially the intention of all of this. These are all supposed to look ridiculous, these characters. Now, you can't actually see the Snowy Owl because she's just inundated with these other two giant characters. However, because that Snowy Owl is attached to her weapon, whenever she attacks, she will attack with that unit, or that unit missile, or whatever it was that you chose as the art model attachment.
For the goddess.
So you can see the Snowy Owl is now her attack, and it will actually hit and die, use its death animation. Be careful when you use this with certain abilities. For example, the Advanced Death Tower one, or the Death Coil, if you use that, and you actually use that as like an attachment to like the head or something to give your hero a cool looking skull. Unfortunately, some of these have the same sound that Death Coil, so all you can hear is it going whoosh, 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 over and over and over again. So make sure that if you are picking unit abilities, that they are silent ones. And these are silent. As you can see, you're not hearing anything from these. The Dreadlord has like badass looking weapons in his hands. Crypt Lord is just super tanky. He's got reinforced burrows and a harpy nest on top of him, so that works out quite nicely for him. I like the Tauren Chieftain. He's got the peon stuck to a pole on top of his head as a hat. But the point I was going to make is, for example, this is something I would possibly change, but not now, because the whole idea was this map was supposed to be ridiculously stupid. But you can see, here's the Troll Headhunter. Attached to his weapon is a skink, a unit skink. Every time it attacks, that's the noise you get. Now imagine what happens when you have 12 of these, all attacking. The sound stacks, so you get and it just goes nuts. So just be careful when you're doing that. Bear in mind this takes a lot of playing and testing, and it's fun. So going back to my point, you can see the Priestess of the Moon. We see how that Snowy Owl has been attached to the weapon and how that now affects the game, which you could not see in the world edit, but when you actually load up the game, it all works. So these are the other two attachments. She's essentially... I tried to hide her as best as possible, but you can see her underneath. But it's basically a sea giant riding a giant dragon turtle.
Prepare to be
and snowy owls come out of the sea giant's crotch. So yeah, make of that what you will. And you can actually see that her shadow meld ability actually still stacks with the unit models. So that's quite cool. But that's not necessarily my intention, it's just a neat little bonus. Okay. So let's come out of this, go and look back once again at the world edit. So we can see that the Snowy Owl worked, right? And the other attachments were the Sea Giant Behemoth, which is attached to her chest, the Dragon Turtle attached to the Origin, and the Human Blood Sorceress attached to the chest. But to be honest, you don't even see that one. I think that's just a bonus. I just attached so much rubbish. Oh, that was it. It's like a bleeding effect. But I don't think it works. Certain abilities do and don't work. And to be quite frank, I don't think that one works, because I don't remember seeing any blood effects come from it. So take that under advisement when you're testing this stuff. You know, have a look at it. But since it didn't work and it wasn't that necessary, I was quite satisfied with just it being a sea giant behemoth riding a dragon turtle that shoots out snowy owls from its crotch. I was happy enough with that, and I didn't bother to delete this. But yeah, just bear in mind that not all abilities are going to work. So that's that. Now, how do you create these? Whatever these are. Well, these essentially are the item bonus. I'm probably not going to be able to find it now that I'm looking for it. There we go. Item armor bonus. So you go to abilities. So you go away from units to abilities. Find under special units, and it'll be under items. Scroll down a bit. Now you select item armor bonus +1 because this essentially has like nothing to it. There's no special effects whatsoever to it. It's very basic sort of ability. So you can Control and C and then Control V to copy and paste. And then what you do from that point on is you attach an art target. For example, an abomination. Now you can attach that to, say, for example, head. Bear in mind that if you want it to be attached to, say, the left hand, you type left and then add another string and hand. You don't do just left hand in one word. So we'll do left hand, and hopefully that will work. Now, target attachments is another thing that you will change. You would change this to 1 because you have one target attachment. Personally, this doesn't seem to always make a difference, but I do it anyway out of OCD. We change the defense bonus to 0 because that's essentially the armor bonus, giving the character 1 armor. So make sure you turn that to 0, because every time you give one of these abilities to your hero or unit, you're going to give it an extra armor. So if you take away the armor to 0, it's like an invisible ability basically. And it does say in the guide to turn this item ability to off. Personally, I haven't done that with any of those, and as you can see, it's worked. However, if you want to follow the rules completely, feel free to do so, and then change the name to Abomination Left Hand, and then say, for example, we take a unit. Let's say, I've changed like almost every unit. So let's take the Blood Elf Engineer. So we go to units, human, campaign, Blood Elf Engineer. There he is. So as you can see, he's got nothing on him. Now what you want to make sure you do is that you go and select his abilities, normal, double click it, add ability, go to custom, go to item. Well, that's the difference, I guess. Originally, I had mine all under item ability, but that's probably why they say take off the item ability, and that way it's under unit. So it just saves you more time, because every time I would have to select from unit to item, but it's obviously a very little thing, but every little helps. So you find it under custom, and unit and item, deciding on how you've played it. Add it, press OK. So now we're going to go and take another look and see how that plays out. Yeah.
No,
As you can see,
let me do it.
not quite so clearly because the abomination is such a large unit, it has been attached to his left hand. It's very hard to see that, but if you look from behind, that's easier to tell. The left side, the left hand is where the abomination is closely attached to. Now, obviously, depending on the unit, if you used a sheep, it'll be more clearly focused on his hand, like smack bang in the middle of his hand. A unit like the abomination is going to be standing up, so it's going to look weird. So, obviously, play it how you want to. For me, this was easy because I
What?
just wanted it to look as stupid
Alright.
as possible. So for example, the peasants have sheep as their
Let's
feet,
go.
so left foot and right foot. 2 target attachment points, and every time he
Righto.
walks around, it's like
Yes,
he's
me
got
lord.
sheep for shoes.
Righto.
So there you go. And
What
that
is
also
it?
works if you turn him
One
into
word?
militia, because I changed the militia as well. So
Alright.
bear that in mind, that if you have a unit that can change
I go
form and
then.
stuff like that, you might
Yes,
want the
me
actual
lord.
sheep to stay there.
Alright.
So you can always just
Yes,
add
me
that
lord.
ability to the militia as well. So it'd only be called something like peasant sheep 1, and then I'd add that
What
to the
is it?
peasant units normal ability and the militia normal unit ability. Now
What would you ask of me?
you know how to do that,
I'll have
so
it up
that's
in no
clearly
time.
demonstrated that. This is a tiny little thing I'll just go over.
There it is. Well,
I
there it is.
basically this you
Well,
can't really
there
do
it
much
is.
with the sound files.
Well,
Unfortunately,
there
in
it
an
is.
ideal world, I would
Well,
love
there it is.
to basically
there it
create
is.
my own voices for
Well,
units
there it
and
is.
characters.
Well,
But I did
there
manage
it
to do
is.
one thing, which was
Well,
Pracky's
there it is.
idea, which was
Well,
to delete
there it
every
is.
single sound
Well,
file or
there it
replace
is.
it
Well,
with,
there it
well,
is.
there it is, for the
Well,
Keeper of the Grove.
there
So
it is.
anything he does, if he attacks,
Well, there
he
it
says,
is.
well, there it is. If he moves, he says, well, there it is. If he dies,
There it is.
he's probably going to say, well, there it is. You could only hear it very quietly, but he did do it. Right, now this is the other thing I wanted to go over. Now this is something you'll probably be interested in doing, and it's a similar thing. Now,
Let me face the
look at this. The Paladin looks cool. He's got the Black Dragon Whelp attack animation, well, unit missile, attached to his weapon. Now when he attacks, it isn't that effect that's causing what you're about to see, and I'll show you how you can cause what you're about to see. And he's got basically the coolest attack.
Strike!
Every time he attacks, it's basically a building blowing up. Ah! 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 Looks badass, doesn't it? Some of the others are a bit more subtle. Kael'thas, Blood Mage,
By the blood of the
has his
highborn.
ultimate ability basically come down, similar to the Dreadlord, if I can find him,
What is it now?
who does
I hunger.
the infernal animation. Sends an infernal
Very
down.
well.
Looks pretty damn badass.
Command me.
And
I am the
Yeah.
iron hand of justice.
I think I won't go into too much detail, apart from the Shadow Hunter attacks with troll bat riders, as you can see. He's got every single troll attached to him. Troll, 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 troll. So yes. Anyway, going back to the point, how do you get this effect? Well, it's not from the art attachment. I will tell you that much for sure. But it's not a hard thing to do. It's very simple. And you know it's simple because I've done it. If it was hard to do, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. So we go back to monitor and take a look at the Paladin. Okay, so he's got a couple of abilities. H Paladin and H Paladin 2. Let's quickly go over those. Those aren't really relevant. Those just backing up what I showed you. He's got the Black Dragon Whelp attached to his weapon, so that's that glowing fire effect. Weapon. Target attachments 1. You take away the bonus and you obviously give it a name, so that way it's easy to find. And phase shift was like this little glowing effect that fairy dragons have when they go into phase shift, which was attached to his left hand, so that made his book look a bit more sort of cool. So just little touches there. You can be very creative with this. Now the Paladin, what I did there is I changed his attack. Now I wanted the balance in this game to stay absolutely on par with normal melee games. I don't want the balance to be affected, aside from the fact that everything is so aesthetically messed up that it will actually, you know, have an effect on you as a player. But besides that, the actual game balance is all the same. Now, for example, if we look at this, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll copy and paste him, and we can have a look at the comparisons between the original and what is the edited version. Okay, let's get rid of those. They're just clutter. Clutter, clutter, clutter. Okay, there we go. So if we say, for example, reset selected unit to defaults. Now this is the Paladin's projectile art. It's 0. His projectile arc is 0. His projectile art is none. His projectile speed is 0 because he doesn't have a projectile basically. and his weapon type is normal. So how did I give him that blow-in explosive effect? Well, what I did is I went to projectile art, so his attack basically. So if you want him to attack with a certain effect, this is how you do it. I simply gave that 0.01. That's just, I'm not sure if that really makes any difference. I just found that it worked for me. So that's what I did there. Projectile art is the neutral building explosion. So you can see under spawned effects. Now this is where you can have any sort of effect. Like I say, for example, Afan's Death Tower. You have a giant skull coming at them. You can have Demolisher attacks. You can chuck buildings at people. So if you do units, every time he attacks with, say for example, the Altar of Depths will basically blow up on them, but it won't be built yet. It's all kind of buggy to some description. If you use Pandaren, then basically every time he attacks, a Pandaren is going to hit them and basically die. Uses death animation, so you can obviously have some funny ones, and so on and so forth. Unit missiles are more common types to use, like the glaive thrower one that would look quite cool, and you can see there's quite a lot of choices here. But either way, I think I got away with neutral buildings somewhere. There we are. Where was it? It was under spawned effects. So you got a lot here. Not all of these are going to work, but that's for trial and error and you to find out. So projectile arc, projectile art. Projectile speed is simply the speed of which his animation, the art, hits the target. So obviously because it's a melee attack, I want it to hit it as fast as possible. So 2000 is very fast. So basically you're not going to notice it. If you chose 1 or something, it might look strange. So I just went for 2000. It works for me. And the missile, the weapon type is missile instead of normal, which means that it travels, which gives the projectile speed. It just works in combination. Either way, whatever way you want to play it, you can see it works. So just basically do it like this. It's the simple way to put it. So that's basically how you change your units and abilities. I know you weren't too worried about the sound one, but I will just have a look quickly. I don't think I can necessarily find it. It's been a while since I actually looked at this one. Units, Night Elf, nope, not under that for whatever reason. Units, there we go. Dissipate, Keep of the Grove hasn't been edited.
My father
Feel
must
natural
not
over
someone's
nature's
fireplace.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how I did that, to be quite frank with you. It was a short while ago, and all of these sound waves have been replaced with, well, there it is. It should really show up, to be honest, but yeah. I don't know why it's not, because as you can see, it clearly works in the game, unless it's imported. There we go. So it's a specially imported one.
For Kalimdor, by the spirits, so shall it be, naturally.
That doesn't make sense either.
Is there danger?
Oh well, whatever. It works, and I don't remember how, so I don't think you were too worried about that one. But yeah, essentially, I know that what I did was I had to replace these files. That's dangerous, though. I wouldn't suggest doing it yourself, but I did. And there's more complex ways to actually get your voiceover, but they're so over the top that I just couldn't bear to do them. So yes, staying back on track. You can see this is how you change your heroes and units, give them weapon abilities, essentially, as you could see with what I did there, so missile and all of that, and then you attach basically what is an ability, such as the item ability, which you take it off an item, and yeah, either way, yeah, you attach an ability to the normal, so it's ability normal, so that way it can be placed on normal units, and it's invisible. You wouldn't see it show up on the paladin. He's not suddenly glowing. It's not on the interface whatsoever. It's just there. And these are the numerous ones I've had, as you can see. So left foot has Illidan's spawn footprint, but I'm not sure if that entirely works. A lot of these are just sort of tapped on, and whether they worked or they didn't work. I did test most of them, but I've gone a bit crazy with some of them. The Dryad was very simple. Just put a penguin on a chest, which actually looks like it's on her head, so it's riding her head. And I even changed the treant, so you can obviously change unit abilities in the same way. So that's how you attach things, and like I said at the very start, you can change the model, so I'll quickly go over that. Art model file is where you change what the unit model file looks like, so you can change it from Archmage to Death Knight very, very easily. Obviously you can make it look like just a demolisher for some reason, demolisher missile. Not that you really want to do that. And the main things when you're doing this, there's so much to play around with here, but I would say art model file and art icon game, so you can obviously if you made a this is if you're making your own custom maps and you made a Death Knight, then you'd want to look for Death Knight. So he'd be here somewhere. And if he isn't, then I'm going to get mad. There we are, Death Knight. So you change that as well. And scaling value. So if you look at the Pit Lord, for example, and I'll find him in a second, he's the only character that I changed just to look ridiculous. So here's the neutral heroes. They don't look that odd. I could have actually shown you those in game, and maybe I will as a last little treat, just at the very end. But there's the Pit Lord. And he's got a tiny selection scale, so he's still technically balanced because that means units can get this close to him. Whereas normally if you were balancing it properly, you would make it so that they can get this close. And the way to do that, because for example to make him this big, you go to scaling value and you change that from like 1 to say 5, for example, and make him huge. So if you look at a moment, the Archmage is now going to be huge. There he is. So he's 5 times the size. That's a big lad right there. And yeah, you want to change the selection scale. So we go to Pit Lord. Why does he have to be under neutral? Ah, there we go. That wasn't too bad. So he's 4 times the size. He's got a normal selection scale of 2.5. See, most heroes have like a selection scale of 2. So if we change that to, I don't know, 10, that should pretty much work out. Oh, there you go. He's now got a selection scale of that size. But that makes more sense when you're selecting him, but that doesn't change his collision size. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. Collision size is something else you want to take into account. Let's see if I could ever find it though. Oh dear, I didn't edit any of that stuff, so there we go. Pathing, collision size. So you'd probably want to times that by 4 since he's 4 times the size. So 30, 90, 128. And then technically this panda shouldn't be able to get too close. I'm not too sure about that. But that should work, and if it doesn't, then obviously feel free to Google and look into that. But those are the main things you want to bear in mind. Don't forget that you can change the unit's movement speed, so you can make them pretty fast, but unfortunately it's kind of capped out at like 600, I think. 522, so you can't go like crazy fast. But yeah, you can just go nuts on this stuff. I couldn't go over all of this stuff, to be honest with you. It would take an eternity. But yeah, if you want building units to be sold from a particular building, so you would select, I don't know, you want the town hall to be able to train Pit Lord, then you simply go to something like this: units trained, add unit, neutral, custom, not custom, just melee, Pit Lord. And then now you can train a Pit Lord as well as a peasant from your town hall, or you can make it a requirement, add it as a requirement with a tech, and all of this kind of stuff. You can go nuts with this. And as you can see, it's weapons and movement speed, collision size, and size you want to take into account as a basic editor. Otherwise, past that point, you can change the color, although I can't remember where that is. That's not far away from here. You can't really do anything too fascinating with the color. You can just simply make it look more red, more green, more blue, or whatever color you can think of. Basically, you just change the hues, and it's there you go. So we just took away that, took away this. That's the town hall. So now it should look very green if I actually build one. There you go. Very ill looking town hall. So little things like that just feel free to go absolutely crazy with this. But yeah, it's scaling value and things like that. So we're going to have a little look as a little treat just at the additional heroes and just see whether that collision size worked. I'm assuming it didn't, simply because I can still move the panda in and out. So just going to take a very quick look at that for a moment. Because other than the collision size, I'm not sure what else you would really need to do. AI path in. No, it does look like it's kind of restricted there. So unless the collision size, let's just be stupid and make it 444. No, it still goes in. So we're just going to assume that 128 should do the trick. And if it doesn't, I don't know. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Let's have a look. Ugh, that horrible town hall. Wow, that's a big pit lord.
Don't waste my time.
So this is my Dark Souls orientated panda as well.
I'll put it on your
Looks
tab.
like something from that. Ah, there we go.
Gladly.
No, kind of
Have one
works.
on the house.
What
I think you
trickery
can get
is
close.
this?
No, I don't know. I don't know really with the
darkness.
collision size. It should really work the way it does, but
You
whatever.
failed to
And
amuse
you can see the pit lord has a giant water trowel in his left hand for some reason. And these are the other
I'm
neutral
ready
heroes.
to track.
Beastmaster is literally a Beastmaster. He attacks with a lizard.
I'm acting on
Pretty
it.
You're missing
badass.
my calculations.
What lies before me?
And he doesn't use the lizard doesn't die or anything like that. He just attacks with it because it's attached to his right hand and not his weapon, I think. Something like that.
My fang and claw.
So that's one way to get around the unit not dying if you want to do that. That should work at least.
What you got?
Tinker has one hell of a long-ranged weapon, giant tentacle. Despite the fact that he's a melee character. I like the... I gave the same sort of thing to the Fire Lord. He drags around because he looks... His movement animation looks very over the top. So he looks like he's dragging this heavy weight behind him. And he's got a water trout as well, which is somewhat ironic for a fire character. The Dark Ranger has an entire dark portal on her origin. So that's an origin attachment point. So basically wherever she goes, it goes. And you can see the Naga Sea Bitch has the little, whatever those things are called, snapdragons. It's part of her, sort of, her origin. Which means that she's moving in a weird way. Right, there we go. It's probably because I'm zoomed in. And she's got a water attached to her bow. Little art
Wanna blow
animation
something
effect.
up?
And one thing I liked here was
You
just...
got it.
I thought that worked. Is I attached the unit, Goblin Tinker, Goblin Sapper, to his head, I believe. And what this... It actually looks like that's an actual
I'll
model.
get that mixed up.
As you can see, his weapon is pretty pimped out, and that doesn't look quite so real or genuine, but those guys sit on him quite well, don't you think? He's got the actual original little goblin in the middle, and he's got the other two little goblins sat on him too, so little
Don't
things like
rush
that
me. I'll get that
just
mixed
make
up.
you have some fun.
Don't rush me. I'll get that mixed up.
And there you go. Right, well I hope you enjoyed this. My favourite is the Shimno, which is giant quattle freaking building thing. Just looks ridiculous because the Shim's always moving about, as you can see, so it just doesn't sit right. Anyway, I could go over those like mad, but that's for you to find out if you wish to on the map. So I think I've covered it all, and I hope you enjoyed this and you learnt something from it. And if you did, then feel free to like the video. That helps others to learn from it and see it as well. If you've got any other advice or tips that work and might correct what I've said before, then feel free to post those in the comments, because you can just use this as a sort of mini forum to some degree to sort of help each other out, or any questions that you might have. You can try to get those answered, but as you can see, I don't know everything. So yeah, I know a few basics, and hopefully those basics will help you out. So thanks again, and I'll see you later.